Cancer and finances, independent of each other, are main stressors in everybody's lives. Now, if we combine the two, put them together in one pot, that stress just gets compounded. And tonight, I want to focus on some myths associated with finances and cancer as I collect some questions that I receive on a regular basis from all of you through my Facebook page, through the quizzes that I post every now and then, through the Ask Me a Question post that I also post every now and then. So what I do with that is I gather the answers and I group them into certain categories. And what I've done for tonight is exactly that. Cancer and finances. I'm focusing on 5 questions that seem to regularly pop out. So welcome everybody. I'm Kirstin Nussgruber from KirstinNussgruberCancerCare.com. And let me delve right in. So the first question or statement that I often hear is that conventional treatments cost me the least of all, or said in another way, I can more easily afford conventional treatments. So my viewpoint tonight is going to be from a point of view of comparing conventional and an integrative or complementary approach, meaning that it's a combination approach, that we include conventional treatments, but we do so much more, which of course, a lot of that you have to finance yourself as a cancer patient because that's not part of our healthcare system. And I think that's kind of the foundation here from which to kick this off of is our healthcare system is the way it is right now. It covers disease treatments. It doesn't cover prevention. And especially when it comes to cancer too, it doesn't really cover any of the supportive treatments that we can do to help us cope better with the conventional treatments, which in my opinion, based on my own personal experience, and of course, the environment that I work in, the types of cancer patients that I support is the only way to go. We have to do a combination or an integrative approach to really, really stand a chance. Because if we just look at the normal statistics on their own, people who are just doing conventional treatments on their own, we are just not faring that well. We have high rates of recurrences, and very often treatments are so toxic that we kind of die from the side effects of these treatments alone. So we really have to consider an integrative approach, and that's when it can become very tricky. So I often have assessment calls. I offer them for free for people that can reach out to me and want to know how can I support them, how can I help them. And when I lay the plan out and give them an indication of what awaits them, very often they take some time to think about it and would approach me and say, I can't afford that right now, even though my rates are reasonable, but still I can't add anything to this other burden. I'm going to just go the conventional route, and that I can more easily afford. So my answer to that is this. Maybe in the short term, meaning maybe when you are being treated right now, but let's consider this. Conventional treatments are very, very toxic and they really weaken the body. So one thing in order to prevent recurrence is that we have to focus on is that our body can be strong enough to thwart cancer growth again, to maybe resist the cancer stem cells that sometimes evade conventional treatment. So we have to be proactive here too. Cancer treatments, conventional cancer treatments, and I'm a product of them too, so they suppress the body's ability to actually stand up to a future cancer recurrence. So what can often happen is that we have debilitating side effects that can become long-term. They can first of all linger for quite some time when treatment is completed, and then they can also sometimes turn into long-term side effects for which we need further medication, for which we need further treatment, for which we might even get a secondary cancer in the process down the line. So to just say that the conventional treatments is what I can afford right now, it's a little bit blindsided. We have to think of what the path ahead looks like. So once again, when we're receiving conventional treatments, those that are focusing on the cancer killing effects, chemotherapy, radiation, some of the targeted monoclonal antibody treatments, for example, they can usually leave severe side effects. The immunotherapies that are actually targeting our own immune system, unfortunately, they're associated with autoimmune diagnoses down the road, because we are now tampering with the immune system, and that can have as an after effect that we have an additional chronic disease diagnosis, namely that of an autoimmune disease. And once we're diagnosed with an autoimmune disease, we can't really cure ourselves of it. We have to manage it, and we can certainly manage that with nutritional lifestyle solutions, with that integrative approach, again needing to go complementary, integrative. We can't just rely on standard conventional care to manage our autoimmune disease. Again, that's not going to be enough. So we have to really have a mindset shift around the outlay, the financial outlay, and what the implications are here. And as the goal we have is we want to support this body of ours. We want to obviously find the right path. How do we treat this? But we also need to understand what avenues we have to go down to support this body long term. And conventional treatments on their own are not going to be enough. And also affording that, well, let's go into the next question, because that is directly related to that. So it says, once my treatments are over, then my financial outlay is reduced, and then I can come back and start this and start working with you. So I hear that a lot too, and I understand that. And sometimes that's the way to go. It really depends on the individual too, to what degree they are overwhelmed with what is happening to them. But there again, one thing I also want to really, really highlight and really stress is that conventional treatments stop when the treatment phase, the active treatment phase, is over. So most conventional treatments focus on a cancer killing effect. And when they consider that that is done, when you have fitted the model of X amount of treatments, the post-treatment phase is not supported by conventional care. They really monitor your blood work, really, but they do not help your body recover. So what you need to then do, and if that's the first time you're considering doing this approach, is then you have to do it with an even more aggressive approach as well, to really, really support the body. So the financial outlay isn't necessarily reduced then, because now we have to really, really haul out all the big guns and try and get this body back into shape, rather than if we would have done it concurrently and gotten ourselves ready for treatment as well and supported the body throughout, then we ease into the post-treatment phase a little bit better, or a little bit easier. So the point I'm trying to make here is, with both these questions, is we have to include an integrative approach if we want to give our bodies a fighting chance. And that includes thinking that finances aren't just there to support conventional treatments. We have to try and make a plan. Now, my health insurance will cover me now that I am a cancer patient. That's another myth, reason, argument, line, sentence that I hear very often. And because a lot of the complementary treatments, of course, are not covered by health insurance. What preventative treatment is, actually, there's none really that I'm aware of. Acupuncture is for some health insurance companies, and chiropractic care is for some. So yay, at least you get a little bit out of that. Now, here I have to say, read the fine print. I have had a couple of my patients tell me that they had a really good, solid health insurance plan, but then when they were diagnosed with cancer and it came to fine-tuning their treatment, or possibly employing tests that would make sure that the type of treatment that is suggested is actually fitting for my particular cancer markers, in other words, making sure that this expensive treatment that I'm receiving is actually going to be effective against the type of cancer that I have. Wouldn't you want to know that? Wouldn't you want to make sure that before I invest $100,000, $150,000 or more into treatment, that treatment actually is going to have an effect on the type of cancer that I have? And we have some of these tests, but unfortunately, health insurance plans sometimes don't cover that at all. Sometimes they want you to go a traditional treatment, like a standard cookie cutter treatment route first. Then when it is discovered that treatment for 5-6 months of chemotherapy, for example, didn't do anything, didn't shrink my tumor, or my tumors came back right away, then they are prepared to look at investing in some of these other tests that could have resulted in a much more targeted approach. And unfortunately, at that point, the body often is so weakened from the initial round of conventional treatments that it's almost too late. And I've had that happen with patients of mine, where actually the second round of more targeted treatments were actually having a much better effect on their cancer tumors, but they had so many side effects and their whole system was so run down from the first round of treatments, they had to stop treatment. The body just couldn't take it. And that's just a crying shame. So read the fine print before you engage in a health insurance, and just inform yourself. We unfortunately living in a society here in the United States where we can become bankrupt over medical costs. It is still something that I can't deal with from a point of view. We're living in a civilized, developed society, and yet medical costs can bankrupt us. And sometimes we have to stop any kind of medical care because we can't afford it, because we are bankrupt. We have to declare bankruptcy, and that's just something that is beyond me. But in other words, don't be assured that your health insurance actually does cover you. Make sure that you read the fine print so that you kind of arm yourself and become knowledgeable about what awaits you and how much they actually will support you. And also, I mean, healthcare insurances are part of our healthcare system, which needs some overhauling here, very seriously so. They're doing their job. And their job is, I'm discovering it with ours, is reject, reject, reject. So, well, then you just fight. You just become that annoying patient that just keeps on, in a polite way, of course, because these are just people that are doing their jobs on the other end, right? They were told what they needed to do and what they can't do. Just become insistent and persistent, because very often certain treatments can actually be covered. And I'll give you a brief example. What happened with me was after one of my treatments, I had some chronic pain in my neck and lower back that just wouldn't go away. And rather than go the chronic pain medication route, which, excuse me, they would have actually covered, I went the biofeedback route. Biofeedback is a modality that teaches your body to correct itself. So you only need a couple of sessions. Usually the body is pretty responsive to that. But if you look at it from a financial outlay point of view, if you're looking at long-term chronic pain medication versus a short period of time of biofeedback, that's a big difference. It's so much more cost effective to go the biofeedback route, and yet they refused to cover that initially. And I just kept on insisting and persisting and just argued my case. And finally they approved it. And that sometimes you just need to get through the first few layers of the system. You know, they're basically hoping that you'll just turn away, or that you're just too exhausted or tired to actually address the problem. And I'll say, just stick with it, because you have a right to, and you have a right to get every ounce of coverage that you possibly can from your health insurance. The fourth question I want to deal with is, I hear that often too, my life will return to normal after treatments are over and there is an end to cancer. Now, cancer isn't an event that has an end. It's a journey. It's a life process. And that's the very first mindset shift that we have to do. Cancer is going to be part of our life, whether we want it or not. We can be in denial for it, but that's not going to do us any good in the long run. So we have to embrace the fact and surrender to the fact and the knowledge that cancer is going to be with us for life. Not necessarily in an active form. However, we have to now be vigilant, more vigilant than ever before, even after treatment, to make sure that we don't have a recurrence, that we understand what has weakened our body and what kind of caused cancer in the first place. So that process is part and parcel of this journey that we are now on. And life will not return to normal. It can't return to normal, because we've had cellular changes, we've had metabolic changes in the body, and we need to understand what's going on in our bodies and get a grip on that. And that means that we really are dedicating ourselves to a more integrative, holistic health approach from now onwards. That takes many shapes and forms, and that's why people like myself are here to support you through that, to help you navigate your way, find your way, because we have many options and all the different puzzle pieces that we have. Hi, Roseanne. And that's something that we just kind of navigate as we go along, and it's something that develops with us, but it is an ongoing journey, and we help you through that. There are many options along the way, but to think that once treatments are over, that's an end to my cancer, and then my life will return to normal. Unfortunately, that's one of the biggest myths of all, and I'm sorry that I'm bursting that bubble if kind of that's what you're hoping there will be. If you're actually feeling that way, if you're feeling disappointed now, maybe frustrated and angry at hearing me say that, I would say to you, stop right there and ask yourself why you are feeling that way. It kind of means that you haven't kind of connected with what this cancer is meant to tell you, and that there's some work that you need to do in that area. And the final question that I want to address today, I said I'm going to talk about 5. That's to do with alternative treatments. Now, alternative means not conventional. And I sometimes get asked about that, in particular in relation to finance, people thinking that they have to finance alternative treatments by themselves almost 100%. And so the quick question is, or answer rather, is yes, because the healthcare system doesn't support any of the alternative treatments at all. So yes, the onus is on you, and some of them, you know, they do run into 5 or 6 digit figures depending on what you have done. But I did attend a conference recently and met a couple of organizations there that support you. So if you are looking for funding, if you're trying to raise funds, there are ways and means in which you can actually apply for certain grants. There's also a way, if you have a life insurance policy, that you can actually have that payout earlier and convert that into cash that you can use to pay some treatments. So that was a novelty that I didn't know about beforehand. Obviously, that's a big decision that one needs to make. However, that's an option out there because the problem of trying to afford alternative treatments is obviously something that is for real, and people are trying to find ways and means of being able to do that. I want to add, though, when it comes to alternative treatments, one important point here too is that it is a lot of money, because everything you lay out literally is not covered by your health insurance. You have to do it by yourself, which whatever way it means you are going to do that. It can be ongoing too, and in particular, if we are adopting an alternative approach, there we really are committed to financial outlay, which is ongoing. We can't really stop. I mean, if we're trying to rectify this problem by itself through an alternative clinic, and I really would advise you to go to an alternative clinic and not try any of this by yourself, because it's not going to be potent enough, then we need to also realize that there will be ongoing treatments, and that can take, well, basically years, but there will be monthly outlays in natural therapies to support your body through this, which we also employ in a complementary or in an integrative approach. But obviously, if you're only doing alternative, it's a whole different ball game. So kind of just keep that in mind as well if you're considering going down that pathway. But cancer and finances are, they can be incredible stresses. And I understand that, because whichever way we choose, there is no 100% guarantee. We don't know what the end of the path is that we are currently on. And we also know that our cancer journey, our health journey has many different paths that we will be traveling on as we move forward. So it does pay, though, to really sit down and work out a way that would work for you, in which you can combine an integrative approach. And again, there are different options here, but that's how we support the body. That's how we sensitize cancer cells so that they are more receptive to conventional treatments. That's how we make the body stronger so that we can cope with conventional treatments and we can finish the designated course and not have to postpone them all the time. So, and we need to stay nourished as well. And how do we do that? So there's so many answers to all of these questions, and that's what we're here to do as well. I have a free webinar for you as well. So if you've liked what you've heard here, I have an hour-long informational webinar, which is for free, which is called Start the Right Way After Cancer Diagnosis. And that's really to offer you an hour window in which you can pause and delve into the space of, I want to make the right decision. What are the things that I should be considering doing? And I answer that for you. Finances is part of that, but there are a couple of other things that I deal with as well, so that you can feel a little bit more empowered when it comes to making your decision. Because once we are empowered with knowledge, we become more proactive and we can become an active member in this team, in your cancer care team, which is really the role that we need to play. So we need to show up for ourselves and not sit back and become this passive recipient, victimized recipient, even though we want to feel that way. I get that. I've been there too. But that's not really what is going to propel us forward. So I'm going to post that link for the webinar in the comment section here. Also, share this with friends that you have and family that you have that you think could benefit from this. Place a comment. I go back to these every now and then and see what people are asking. Let me know what you'd like to hear about as well. If there's a particular topic in my Facebook Lives, my weekly Facebook Lives that you want to hear about. And also hop onto my YouTube channel, Kirstin's Cancer Care, because there as well, I post most videos that I do on there. So there's a reservoir of short videos that give you lots of information as well for free to empower you to make the right decision. So thank you for joining me tonight, and have a good evening, and take care for now. So remember, any more information, Kirstin'sCancerCare.com is my website. I hope to see you there. Take care.